All right, Brain. What's the answer?
Really? That's so easy. It's,
How many times, Brain? How many times?
In this video, I'm going to show you how to add and manipulate audio in Adobe Animate. So like sound effects, dialogue, and music, whether you record and edit your own sounds or download them from the interwebs. All right, so obviously in order to animate with audio, we actually have to import our audio files into Animate first. And we can do that just the same way as we would import any other media files by going up to File and Import. And really there is two different ways that we can do this. We can import it to the library and import it to the stage. So when you click on Import to Library, it obviously brings you to your File Explorer, just like any other method would. And then you just have to find which folder your audio is in. So mine's in this Scenes and Camera and then Audio folder right here. Now the important thing to know is that you'd use Import to Library when you're like really organized and you have all your audio files ready to go in advance, like before you even start animating anything. Or if you kind of know that you have a sound that you want to bring into your project, but you don't exactly know where it's going to fit within your animation just yet. So I'm going to bring all of these in at once. So I'm just going to highlight all of them and then just go open, and it's going to bring them into my library up here, kind of one at a time. You saw them importing there. The problem is that they're scattered all over the place here, and I have the other audio files that I was using previously in here as well. So I put those ones in a folder called Media right here. But for the sake of the tutorial, I'm going to make a new folder to put in my new sounds. So to do that, I'm just going to go down here to this little folder thing here called New Folder. Click on that. And then I'll call this one Media Files just to change it up. And then obviously you're just going to drag in your audio clips. So all the ones that have the audio thing like this to the side of it, little icon, just click and drag them into the Media Files folder. So I got my fart sound effect right here. I have my classroom sound effects, and I have brain fart dialogue, now all in the Media Files folder. Okay, so now how do you get them from your library into your animation? Well, I have these ones in here already, so I'm not going to use this project. I'm going to go over to my scenes here, and I'm on Teacher 1 right now. I'm just going to go to Teacher 1 Copy, and now that has no audio in it. So then I can go back to my library and be ready to bring these in. Now, the important thing to know is that whatever layer you're on and whatever keyframe is, even if it's a blank keyframe, closest to like the left of wherever you're selected, that's where your audio is going to start. So if I'm selected way over here on this body layer and I click on, let's say, the fart sound effect, and I just drag it to the stage and let go, it's going to put the audio starting at this keyframe, and it's going to go for the duration of the audio unless this scene is cut off. But before we go any further, I'm just going to go Control Z and Control Z to take the audio off of that layer. Because my number one suggestion when adding audio is to create unique audio layers, like tracks, for each audio thing that you're going to bring in, or at least each type of audio thing you're going to bring in. So instead of putting it on this body layer, let's make a new layer and call it fart sound, so it has its own track right here. You can also just call this like maybe SFX for just your like sound effects. Then you maybe make a new one for just, let's say, music, and maybe another new one for just like dialogue, let's say. So now you can rearrange these things as you need. So if I was going to do my dialogue one, I would actually move it so it's just above my mouth so that I can match those two up. And then my music, I would probably move to the bottom with my background. So that's going to be its own thing down there. And then the sound effects, in this case, I don't have the fart happening on this scene, but I would move it to wherever I had the kind of fart, like cloud farting out of his bum right there. So I'm just going to leave it here for now, above body. And then I'm going to do the exact same thing I did before, but instead of just dragging it onto the stage and having it go to the first keyframe here, I'm going to add a couple random keyframes. So if I know that the fart was happening right around here, I would just come in here and put a keyframe in there, even if it's a blank one, and then I would drag the fart sound onto the stage. And you can see now it starts right there. But what if I have another sound that I want to put later? Now, just be aware, I'm going to show you how to move this. Like this is obviously where the fart actually happens. I'm going to show you how to move that into place after. But what if we had another keyframe over here and we drag it in? Now there's going to be two fart sounds on here. We can see this one starts late, and this one, you might think it goes from here to here and gets cut off, but every single sound that you bring in is going to start on its keyframe, and again, it's going to go for the duration of the scene. This sound is still going to play through, and this one is going to play as well. So I'm just going to let you listen to those two fart noises. Right? So they both played kind of back to back, even though they're on the same sound effects layer, they'll both play and they'll both end no matter what right here. Another little side thing to be aware of is that if you move your audio clip to the first frame, sometimes Animate has a hard time exporting it. So it might not even show up in your export. So my suggestion is that no matter what, start your animation on frame 2 at the earliest. So leave frame 1 open. So for example, I actually added 3 fart noises to this one scene, and if I play it, it only plays the 2 that happened later. The one that I had that started right at the very start right here, it actually doesn't play. Only this one played and this one. The other way to import your audio files into Animate is to go up to File, Import, and Import to Stage. Now, the big difference here is that when you import to stage, it's like you just dragged your audio onto the stage. So it's going to show up on whatever layer you're on, and the same rules apply. So if I'm clicked here, it's going to import that audio to the stage, and it'll bring it into your library, and it'll put it on the timeline right here at whatever keyframe is to the left of it right there. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to click on Body right here, go up to File, Import to Stage, and I'm just going to click that same fart sound so we can see the same thing. I double click there to import it, and you can see it put it right at the very start on that keyframe again, and it's playing through the duration. And if we go over here, you're going to see that there's a new fart sound effect that was also added into my library that's outside of my media files. This was the other one that we used before. So when would you use import to stage? Well, if you're editing through your sequence here and you realize, I need a sound effect right there, let's say, or like right at this spot, and you don't have it in your library over here, then you'd go File, Import to Stage to bring in whatever audio clip or image or whatever and put it in right there because you know you need it right there. But just like we did for import to library, I would not import to stage on a layer that exists already. This body layer is an image, and I don't want to have my sound on there. So I would do the same thing, add a new layer, double click. I'm just going to call this SFX2, and I would add my keyframe where I wanted it. So if I wanted it right there, add my keyframe, and then I would go up and go File, Import to Stage, and bring in that sound, and there it is right there. On a side note, if you're trying to import a file, so you go up to File, Import, whether it's to library or to stage, and your file is not showing up, that just means it's not compatible with Animate. So files that you're safe with are AIF audio files, WAV files, WAV, and obviously MP3s. I use MP3s pretty much for everything because they're smaller, and therefore Animate can handle editing them much easier. Next, let's take a look at how to sync, like line up or match your audio with the visual in your animation. So to do that, I'm going to go over to Scene, and I'm going to go over to my brain copy this time. So this is actually where the fart happens. So it happens right there. And I have to now line that up. So just like I did before, I'm going to find that fart layer. So right here, this is where the fart happens. I'm going to add a new layer, call it SFX for my sound effects. And I'm going to put a keyframe just somewhere around here. I know the fart happens right there. So I'm going to put my keyframe right there, and I'm just going to import to stage. Actually, I'm going to go back to library and just drag it in because I brought it in a bunch of times already. So I'm just going to click on fart sound effect, drag it in, and there it is. But as you can see, as I talked about before, the fart sound is actually way over here. It doesn't start where the sound effect starts here. So if I want to move this over, I can do one of two things. I can click on this first frame here of the sound, and then make sure it's highlighted blue. So maybe I'll just zoom in here so you can see. And then I'm going to click on it again. So don't click on it the first time and then drag. It's not going to work. You're just going to drag out like this. You got to click on it and then click on it again, and then you can drag it over. So I'm just going to drag it over to the left, and I'm going to zoom back out a little bit so I can see it. And therefore, I'm now moving the whole thing over. So I can click here. I'm just going to move it over a little bit, move it over a little bit more, and then now it's lined up where I want it. So if I click here and play.
Did I do that?
One thing to really be aware of is that I played it there and you probably didn't hear it. So I play it again, you didn't hear it. That's because we have to go over to properties, and if you want your audio playing at the same time that you're able to scrub through, like if I'm scrubbing through like this, I want to be able to hear like fart noises as I'm doing it. So the big thing to be aware of is on your audio layer, you have to go over to properties, and over here when it says sync, you have to change it from event down to stream. I'm going to talk about these a little bit more later, but down to stream. Now on that one, if I scrub, you're going to hear those fart sounds. So this is what you need to do to be able to line it up properly. Now when I play it, you can match it up. So if it goes a little bit too early maybe, then you can just keep moving it. The other way to move your clip, well, it's actually not another way, it's just better, I think, is to not have this big stretch of audio in advance. So what I would actually do is I would find the very start of it. So I would click maybe right there, give it a little bit of leeway, maybe even right there. And I would right click, and I'm going to go to split audio right there. Boom. Now that's going to create a new frame that's closer to where the audio, like where the sound actually happens. Then I can go in here, and I don't want any of this there. So I'm going to remove those frames. They're gone. And then now I can take this keyframe, or the frame here at the start of the audio, and move it exactly where I want it. I don't have to like time it with anything. And then I can take the end of it and just drag it to the end of the scene. So now I have my fart lined up exactly where I want it. And I would actually probably go to the end here, highlight these, right click, and remove those as well, because I don't want any extra random sound if I don't need it, even though there probably isn't any there in this case. Now, this method of lining things up obviously works well when the visual is the first thing you have in, and then you're lining up the audio afterwards. But what if you have a scenario like this? I'm going to go to teacher copy 2, and I have in here, I've already done it. Actually, let's go to teacher copy 3. I have the voice, like his mouth moving here. That's not by accident. So I didn't just do that in advance. There's no way you're going to go in here and you're going to put the like animated part, the visual of somebody talking first, and then try and put in the sound. In this case, I'm going to go back to now teacher 3. So this is the same scene, but the audio is already in. For this one, I put in the audio first. So him talking in here.
How many times?
I'm going to hide this actually. Let's just hide this. Him talking here.
How many times, brain? How many times?
The mouth was put in after. So I lined up each of these kind of different things. So I'll bring this back. I lined up each of these mouth movements to a different sound that was happening up here. I wouldn't do it the opposite. I wouldn't put these in and then hope my audio kind of lines up. So for dialogue, you want to do the audio first. You want to put in your audio first and then mess with the visuals of the mouth after. All right, now let's take a look at all the ways that we can enhance our audio. So when you're clicked on your audio, somewhere within here, then go up to properties, and you'll see a whole bunch of things in here. Really, all I'm talking about is going to be right here for sound. So the first bit here is the name of the sound. You can drop down and change it, but that would be dumb in this case to do that. The next is effect. In there, we can change everything from just having it go on the left channel. So if you have headphones, you'd just hear on the left. So let me just click on that, and you can, if you have headphones, you're going to be able to hear. Okay, if we go back in there, we can see that we can also change it to the right channel. We can fade to the right or fade to the left. So let's just check that one out as well. So fade to the right means that it's going to first be in your left ear, like left ear, and then it's going to fade to your right ear. Okay, so that's good if you have like a car zooming by and you need it to seem like it's going from the left to the right, you know, something like that. And then at the bottom here is fade in and fade out. That's pretty obvious, but that's really important that if you did want something to end, you want to make sure that this ends and there's no sound going afterwards. You can just click on here and go fade out. Now, if you notice, you can only pick one at a time though. So I'm going to pick fade out here, and then now the other effect would be missing. If we click over here, edit sound envelope, this is kind of like our custom enhancements in here for our sound. But if you notice, it's going to mirror what your effect is. So if I switch this to none, now I can control what happens to the volume. So I can take the whole thing and slide the whole bar down, and this will make my audio, you know, quieter, or if I bring it back up, louder. And if I click anywhere else down this line, so if I click kind of here, let's say, I can also drag this one down so I can have it fade, you know, from here to here by myself. And this is the left side. So just the left side would be getting quieter here, while the right side, right channel would stay, you know, loud. So I could essentially put one here and drag this one down and have them go opposite. And this would be kind of exactly what would happen for a fade to the right. So it's loud on the left and it disappears on the left while it's getting louder on the right. So, and obviously you can click more times in here and create more custom effects if you want. So let's just do a quick listen to see if I was actually right and made kind of the same sound as we heard before, from left to right. Okay, if we click back on and we go over here, we can see the next thing is what I said before, that sync, which was either stream or event. These ones are pretty obvious. So if you want something to stop right there, like at this keyframe, you want this audio to stop, then you can click stop and it's going to stop right there. You can see it actually splits it and the audio is now missing. I'm going to undo that. But the big two to really be aware of in here is stream and event. So really the initial thing is while you're editing, if you want to hear the sounds as you're scrubbing, obviously pick stream. If you don't want to hear them for some reason, pick event. But where event comes into play is actually when you're testing your animation or when you're exporting it. So let's just take a look at a few different scenarios and see how they play out. This up here, you can see in my scenes, I just have my 4 original scenes from my original animation. I got rid of all the extra ones that were part of the tutorial. And I have on the first one, Teacher 1, I have this music track that has now a song in it. And I want that song to play during this scene, and then I want it to carry over to the other 3 scenes. But if we look at any of these, you can see that there is no evidence of that song anywhere. I don't have a music layer or track on any of these. So let's see if I can get it to play throughout all of the scenes back to back to back. So let's check out under properties. Let's first try, I got to go back to Teacher 1, click on my music layer here, go to properties, and the first one I'm going to try is sync to event. So go up to control and I'm going to go test.
All right, brain. What's the answer?
Really? That's so easy. It's,
How many times, brain? How many times?
Okay, so obviously when I was on this one and I had my sync set to event, the music played, it continued to play throughout each of the scenes. Now, what if I switch it to stream? Let's see what happens there. So same thing, control, test.
All right, brain. What's the answer?
really? That's so easy. It's,
Okay, so we don't have to listen to any more. You can see that under, when we switched it right here, under properties, sync to stream, it only played from here to here, and then it stopped. It didn't carry through to the other scenes. Okay, so the last thing that I'm going to show you is how to carry a piece of audio. So this is the dialogue one right here, the voices, and I start it right here, and this is just the sigh. So I'm just going to play this. But that sigh continues over to Teacher 3 right here. This is the same audio clip, and it just continued right here.
How many
To
times?
there, okay? So how did I do that? Well, all I did, I was over on Teacher 2 and I had this audio clip right here. Then all I did was I clicked on this and then I'm just going to drag it out a few frames. So let's say to like 35 there. You don't have to, you only have to go a couple if you want, but then you have to click back to this one right here. Okay, so the one that's right after where it originally ended, right click on it and we're going to split audio again. So that leaves the audio right here, the original one, and it's going to end right there. And then all we have to do is highlight, so click and then highlight these ones right here, right click on it, cut those frames, go over to Teacher 3, like the next scene over. Then we obviously have to make a new layer. I'm going to call this, I'm going to call this voices again, like I had before. And then all you're going to do is go to the first frame. I know I said not to go to the first frame, but this is not the first frame. The first frame is on Teacher 1 for this animation. We're already in scene 4, so it's not technically the first frame. But if you have this, so if you have the frames all the way to the end here, just to make sure that you can line everything up properly, I would highlight them all and just right click and remove those frames just to make sure that we're starting on just one right here. Then right click and paste frames. It's just going to paste in the ones that you had cut from the other scene from Teacher 2 over here. And if you notice, if you go back to Teacher 2, there's just this blank kind of segment. Make sure you highlight all of that, right click and remove those frames as well so they're gone. And then when we go back to Teacher 3, all we have to do is click on the final keyframe of that little patch that we brought over, the little segment, and then just drag it out to the end, and there you go. Now your audio will play seamlessly from here. It'll end right there on this frame, and then obviously the next frame is where it'll continue over here on Teacher 3 and complete the animation.
How many times, brain? How many times?
And that's it. That's all I got for adding and enhancing audio in Adobe Animate. If you got something out of this video, make sure to drop a like. And if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing, and I'll catch you next time.